Hey friend, welcome to Musing Forward Your First 90 Days. This short lesson is really all about giving you the realistic set of expectations I've garnered in teaching budgeting to my students for over 10 years. I've always found that being realistic was somehow inherently encouraging in the process, and I sincerely want for you to be encouraged throughout this course. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about 1, what to expect in your first 90 days of budgeting. 2, we're going to bust the biggest budgeting myth of all. 3, we're going to talk about the importance of being realistic with yourself. And 4, we're going to talk about the importance of communication and regular budgeting meetings. And as I mentioned in the introduction, even though the title of this course is 5 Days to a Bulletproof Budget, you're probably not going to master the skill in 5 days, unless you're some sort of emerging superhero. No, I want to help you gently settle into the realistic idea that this process is going to take about 3 months and that it's totally normal. And to help you get a mental picture of how the process will unfold, I want to unpack it in 3 stages. Okay, let's introduce the 3 stages and then dive into what each one will look like and feel like in more depth. Month 1, controlled demolition. I see you shaking your head. Yep, that's right. Usually not super pretty. Month 2, some wins coupled with an almost equal amount of frustrations. Month 3, it all starts coming together. That's the 30,000 foot view of where we're headed. So let's jump into what month 1 will look like and feel like. So as you get started, the chaos might feel overwhelming to the point of being almost unbearable. It is for a lot of our students. It might feel like a controlled demolition as you try to pull all of the disparate parts and pieces of your finances together into an organized whole. Honestly, month 1 is where a lot of folks just walk away from the process altogether. It's tough to get organized when you've been disorganized for so long. And then once you are organized, there's going to be a good amount of stuff that you just forget. Rest assured that this is all a normal part of month 1 and that all of these struggles are completely normal. If you feel like a failure, it's okay, but you're only a failure if you quit. And actually, the first part of this process always feels like failing forward with most of our students. Stick with me, don't quit, and we'll get you through it. As a quick side note, for most of my past 10 years of coaching, I've almost 100% recommended starting with a paper budget. But as of the creation of this course, I'm actually seeing excellent results by starting my students with a software I use called YNAB, which I'll cover a little bit later on in the course. So I just wanted to bring that up in the case that you're more electronically oriented, and I'm not gonna force you into doing a paper budget in this course. So that's month 1 as an overview. Next, let's talk about month 2. Some wins coupled with an almost equal amount of frustration. Okay, so we're past the controlled demolition and we're on to your second month. At this point, it's going to feel like you've got some pretty solid training wheels under you, but be prepared that you might still manage a few crashes as you move through this phase. It's okay, just keep pushing through them, and I promise it will get better. And a little counterintuitively for some of our students, month 2 may feel even more frustrating than month 1, if only because you've actually tasted some sweet wins already. The setbacks and shortcomings will pass. Just stay in the game and you'll be golden. Okay, now let's talk about month 3, where it all starts coming together. If you've stuck with the process up to this point, have organized your finances, are looking at your numbers every day, updating it with expenses, this is where it all starts to make sense to you. This is when you start saying stuff to yourself like, man, I can really see myself getting good at all of this. At this point, you've made most of the mistakes you're going to make, and you've probably experienced some pretty solid consistency also. If you're feeling confident enough, you could even consider pivoting to an app or a spreadsheet for month 4's budget. But be warned, you might want to wait and just continue to do it on paper for just a few more months, just to solidify the skill. So that's what to expect in your first 90 days. Now let's bust the most pernicious budgeting myth you might be familiar with, the born budgeter myth. No matter where you are along the continuing of building your budgeting skills, the fundamentals are the same. And like I mentioned earlier, it's important to understand that they can absolutely be learned. Just know that if you've been frustrated in the past, it's normal and it may not be the last time you're frustrated, honestly. But there's a myth I want to debunk that some people are born budgeters or that some people just have a talent for budgeting. After having learned budgeting myself, the hard way, and having taught it to thousands of students over the past decade, I can resolutely say that there is no such thing as a talent for budgeting. There is no such thing as a born budgeter. nope, it's just not true, and that's actually not a bad thing. I hope that it's encouraging to you that budgeting is absolutely a skill and one that can be learned by anyone, no matter how many times they've tried and failed in the past. The key is to have that why we worked so hard to articulate in the last lesson. So, a strong, passionate, emotional why and a strong desire for learning the skill. It's also pivotal to have a process for acquiring the skill and resources in place to help you get unstuck when you're stuck and to encourage you when you feel like a failure. It's all in here. And like I also alluded to earlier, you will almost certainly feel like a failure at first. In my years of coaching, I've witnessed consistently that this process takes about 90 days of concentrated effort to garner success. Let's talk about the importance of being realistic. I may be sort of psychologically over preparing you for this piece, but I want you to be honest with yourself. How many years have you either not budgeted or not budgeted effectively? I ask this question because while it's not going to take you that long to learn the skill, it will take some time, and I just want you to keep in mind how long you've not been doing it or not been doing it well to help you set some realistic expectations for yourself and avoid getting frustrated. The importance of communication and regular budgeting meetings. If you're married, this is going to be particularly important for you. If you're like most couples we've coached over the years, you may have a different money personality than your spouse does. One or the other of you may be much more detail-oriented, and one may be more by the seat of your pants. That's okay that you're different, and it's the entire reason we encourage regular communication about budgeting and expense tracking and holding regular budgeting meetings, at least weekly, but don't be afraid to do it daily for a while until you get into the rhythm of it. This process will help you navigate both yourselves individually in budgeting as well as each other's differences of approach. Have patience with each other and get help if and when you need it. Okay, let's do a little recap of what we've talked about in this lesson and have a little call to action. Conclusion and call to action. So in this lesson, we've talked about 1, what to expect in your first 90 days of budgeting. 2, we've busted the biggest budgeting myth of all. 3, we've talked about the importance of being realistic with yourself. And 4, we've talked about the importance of communication and regular budgeting meetings. So hopefully this sort of preloading of benchmarks and expectations is encouraging to you. You know I'm all about calling you to action. So let me know in the comments which one or more of these points was the biggest surprise for you. Which ones do you anticipate struggling with the most? And if you've completed the lesson, great work. Now we're on to day 2, where we're going to set another level of solid foundation for you to never have to worry about your money again. But before you move to the next module, please make sure to give us some feedback on this one in the feedback time, tell us your thoughts section. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.